Welcome to the Conscious Kinky Podcast, where we explore sexuality, connection, and power through awareness and intentional choice.
At the Kink Collective, we help people reframe their relationship with sexuality, build deeper connections, and become safe spaces in the world.
Each episode invites reflection, not performance.
And the conversation continues inside Conscious Conversations, our live community space. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the Conscious Kinky Podcast.
I'm Joshua.
And I'm Kat. This podcast exists because so many people struggle with boundaries, not because they don't care, but because they were never taught that boundaries are an act of self-respect rather than rejection.
At the Kink Collective, our work is simple and intentional. We help people build an internal capacity to hold boundaries cleanly, without collapse, without defensiveness or control, so connection can actually deepen.
Each week we slow things down. We explore kink, leather, and intimacy, not as rules to follow, but as practices that reveal how we relate to power, consent, and responsibility.
Today's episode continues month 4, power, boundaries, and self-worth. This week we're stepping into boundaries as practice, not theory. This episode introduces 8 reflection questions. The first 4 focus on awareness and orientation, noticing where boundaries soften or deepen. The second 4 focuses on integration, practicing clarity without apology.
You don't need to fix anything today. Just notice. Let's begin.
So most people think boundaries are about saying no, but boundaries actually start much earlier. They start around the times where we start to notice discomfort, tension, or hesitation in the body.
By the time we say no out loud, the boundary has often been crossed, at least internally, if not overtly, right? The body always knows first.
In kink spaces, boundaries become impossible to ignore because consent, pacing, and safety depend on clarity. But the same patterns show up everywhere else too, in work, family, friendship, intimacy.
This episode is about recognizing boundaries as self-respect in motion, not walls, not punishment, and certainly not ultimatums.
So before we jump into the first set of questions, what I want you guys to think about is this. As you come across the questions, take a few minutes to answer each one, pause in between each one. And when you're done answering these 8 questions that you're going to come across, come back in about a day or 2 and flesh them out.
So the first 4 questions help notice where boundaries soften and why. So question number 1, what boundary do I avoid setting because I fear being misunderstood or rejected? Whose rejection feels more important than your own clarity?
So what boundary do I avoid setting because I fear being misunderstood or rejected? I don't know, Mama. That's a hard one for me. I'm sure you can point them out faster than I can.
I don't know. I've been thinking about this topic, right? And I know that when I started out my adult life, I didn't even know what a boundary was. And I certainly didn't know how to set them. And I certainly lived my life in such a way that people were doing all kinds of running around, like running over me. And I had no idea what to do to stop it or say no or anything like that. So boundaries in a big way are something that I learned how to do some time ago. And so I've been trying to think of like, where does it show up in my life today? Where do I have trouble setting boundaries? I think most recently it's been in our relationship where I've had the hardest time, and that's been your reaction is the one that feels sometimes more important than my own clarity. I can get confused about that. Not confused, but I can give in to that, right? And I don't know that I fear being misunderstood or rejected, but I do fear being rejected. That's true. Rejection is definitely one of the things that I fear. And like we said in the earlier episode, one of the things that I do is resort to silence. I resort to just saying nothing, right? When sometimes something does need to be said. So the question then specifically, what boundary do I avoid setting? Sometimes the boundary I avoid setting is the way I'm willing to be spoken to. Sometimes I have a preference for how I want to be spoken to and how I don't want to be spoken to. But I will let that go if I'm afraid of if I'm afraid that saying something is only going to exacerbate a situation.
Boundaries. I know it has to do with saying no somewhere. Right?
To be clear, boundaries has to do with how we want to be treated.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with boundaries, how we want to be spoken to, how we want to be acted upon or with, or what we're comfortable with people doing around us or not doing around us. And, you know, like in reference to my very first marriage was there was a lot of drugs and alcohol involved in that particular part of my life, but there was also a lot of dishonesty, and I was with a partner that was, plagued by these issues, and so like money got stolen from me. I got told that car payments got made when money was taken, and other things happened with it, and like I lived in a life like that. Those were boundaries I needed to set. Those were real boundaries that I needed to learn about and needed to learn how to set, right? Oh. I got to the place in my life where I no longer lived like that. I no longer let people steal from me. I no longer let people lie to me. I no longer live like that. And I learned how to do that over time because of the consequences of what it felt like to live like that and to not want to live like that. So that's like, for me, that's like big B boundary, big capital B type boundary stuff, right? Those kinds of like, how do we want to live? How do we want to be treated? And then being willing to speak up for those things. And for me, in my case, it involved losing people. I had to exit some people out of my life and then get different people into my life that were willing to treat me closer to the way that I wanted to be treated.
When I think about boundaries that I avoid setting, I think they mostly have to do with how I treat myself. And it's like I think about it, like, and it boils back down to behaviors that I treat myself. Either not enough rest, doing too much, doing too little, right? Not right. It's like, what is preventing me? What am I afraid of by setting those boundaries against myself, against my choices? It says, whose reactions feel more important than your own clarity? And it's like the boundaries are, don't do that anymore, or you need to start doing this. And I think I avoid them because of the comfort of not doing it. Like I don't need the discipline if I choose not to do it. I don't have to be disciplined, right? So I fear having to discipline myself on schedule and timing and where I'm putting certain energy and stuff like that. And it's like, and what does it mean? It just means I'll be tired. It means, what do I do with myself?
I can relate to that. I have one of my current issues is around this whole rest thing, me being able to rest when I need to rest, right? Sometimes I don't rest when I need to rest. Not that I'm afraid of being misunderstood or rejected, but I'm afraid that I am going to be seen as not trying hard enough, of not doing enough, of not getting enough done. And whether that's I'm afraid other people are going to see me that way, or I'm just afraid I'm going to see me that way, that I'm going to feel like I'm a failure because I don't do enough. And yet there's this thing where I don't do well when I push myself past the point of like when I need a nap, right? So sometimes I just have to like let myself take a nap.
Yeah.
As a self-boundary kind of thing.
How does my body let me know when a boundary has been crossed? Is there tightness? Is there fatigue, irritation, numbing, withdrawal? What signals do you tend to ignore? Oh, hold on. Let me come back. What boundary do I avoid setting because I fear being misunderstood or rejected? Let me go back to this last question.
Okay.
Reading the second question has got me thinking about the last few days in my life. What boundary did I avoid setting? I think it has to do with not wanting my time delegated for me, or constant energy exchange, meaning I have to entertain you.
Like energy exchange that you don't that's not voluntary.
Yeah.
Like voluntold.
It's like hostage.
Yeah, hostage taking.
Like, I don't like to entertain people if I don't have to entertain. But like we've spoken about this before, where if someone's coming over, I don't want to have to entertain them. Right? We've had that conversation where it's like I'm peopled out and I don't want to have to sit and talk with anybody. Ultimately, I end up sitting and talking with them because I can't stop. But it's one of those situations where I feel hostage to someone's need for attention. And reading the second question.
How did your body let you know that the boundary had been crossed?
And the boundary is like personal space and time. And it's like sometimes, or at least I thought it's evident. Like, dude, shut the fuck up. But that wasn't the case.
But how did you feel in your body?
In my body, I felt tightness. I felt all of this shit. I felt tightness, not fatigue. I was fatigued of their fucking ass. Irritated beyond measure. Numbing was trying to go silent, and withdrawal big time. Easily just those examples. And there's a ton more. And the idea was, I don't want to be here. I have no interest. Like, I don't want to be in this moment. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to zero everything out and just roll with it until it's done.
Instead of
saying, hey, listen, shut the fuck up. No, but that's not really what that would have looked like. What that could have looked like was something along the lines of, I need some space. Saying I need some space. I need some quiet time. I need some me time.
Yeah.
Don't call me, I'll call you. Not like that, but I've not had to deal with that in a very long time, so I didn't have the language or the idea around this, the wherewithal of actually saying this shit. So instead, I withdrew, I got numb, I got angry, I got irritable. And then the people closest to me are affected by that. And it's not their fault. And they're doing their best to help soften my crash landing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a similar thing. I have a greater need for alone time than I give myself permission to have. And sometimes the way you see that is it gets to a certain part of the night and mama just says, okay, I'm going to bed now. And it's not because I'm going to bed right now. It's because I'm going into my room and being alone because I need quiet time.
But I don't count as that quiet time, right, mama?
No. No, you could always come to bed at bedtime because you know how to be quiet and just snuggle. Anyway, so sometimes it's hard. I mean, we're in a people business, right? We're in a business where we're with people and we're with people a lot and people want time and attention. And sometimes I just need quiet time. And sometimes it's hard to take that time. It's hard to feel like I'm being selfish. I feel like I'm being not considerate sometimes. But I just need it because I recharge. I'm one of those like an introvert with some extrovert qualities, but I need that alone time. You know how you know if you're one of those people? If you were secretly relieved when COVID started.
Let's jump into question number
All right.
3. Where do I override my own no to maintain connection or avoid discomfort?
The alone time. The alone time, the quiet time, the downtime, the sleep time, the rest time. There's a part of me in my body that's saying I need to do it. And then there's a part of me that, I override my no. Like if we're doing events, if we have an evening event, I feel like I need to be at it. I feel like I need to be at it for a long enough time to feel like I showed face. And sometimes I just don't have it in me. And it's like I just fight with myself, and it does feel like it's an attempt to maintain connection with the people who come, with our clients, and I have a genuine desire to maintain connection with the people who come to see us. But sometimes I have to take care of myself. And that's not always an easy balancing act.
Yeah. What about, where do you say yes that costs you later? I think that would be it too.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
saying
yeah,
at the
yeah.
events. Where do I override my no to maintain connection or avoid discomfort? What do you say yes to that costs me later? I think very similarly to what you shared. What I notice is I end up getting quiet and trying to disconnect silently. Sometimes I override my no for the harmony of what's happening or the peace of what's happening. For example, if I'm visiting someone and they're like, oh, let's go on a hike, and it's them and their whole fucking family, and it's like I'm meeting everyone for the first time, I'll say yes. It's gonna cost me rest and fucking not wanting to go. But I think also at that point it promotes connection. And it's not, it is to maintain connection because I'm the new one in the space and I don't want to be that fucking sourpuss.
I think the important part about all of this is time and place, right? Sometimes there's a time and place to override a no, and sometimes there's not. And sometimes there's a time to show up and say yes, and sometimes there's a time to show up and say no, thank you, and being conscious of it, being aware of it, right? Like the case you're giving, right? The thing about going on a hike. If it's to a purpose that has to do with a connection, then you consciously choose to, like, would you, all things being equal, would you go on the hike? Maybe not. But in this case, in this circumstance, with these people, in this situation, you do say yes. And it's okay to do that, right? That's the thing about boundaries is it's like, what's happening? What are you consciously choosing to do? And what's the consequences?
And then what's the difference between boundary setting and fucking lazy? Like when I invite my fucking brother over to come and play Street Fighter, and he's like, oh, my. Just kidding. Jeremy, that's for you just in case you watch this episode. No, because it made me think of, like, if I want someone to go to the store with me, right, for company. And it's like, what if a person doesn't want to go?
Right.
And
the beautiful part about this whole thing is when you get good at making your boundaries, like, you get to show up and say, hey, I'm going to go to the store and I'd really like company. And then you give other people the freedom to say that they do or don't want to go.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we give each other the freedom to, like, but if I don't ask because I don't want to impose, then I'm not getting my needs met. And then I haven't given you an opportunity. Maybe you do want to go with me, but if I don't ask, then you don't get to, right? Or if I ask in that hostage taking way where I'm like, will someone go to the store with me? Because, like, and I'm going to pout if you don't go, then I guilt you into doing it, then that's a manipulation, right? So I just think to the degree to which we can speak our truth, say what we need, say what we want, and let other people do the same thing, and then not necessarily hold anybody to account if they can't do what you need them to do.
That's fair. Question 4, what story do I tell myself to justify weak boundaries? I don't want to make waves. They didn't mean it. It's not that bad. I should be able to handle this.
All of the above. Those are all stories that I've told myself to justify a weak boundary, right? I don't know about I don't want to make waves, but sometimes I can say, well, they didn't mean it, or they didn't mean it like that, or whatever, or I do tell myself it's not that bad sometimes. And again, those are like rationalizations or justifications. And I think the important part about the boundary setting is I have to push past that to make a decision about a boundary that I need to set. I need to be able to say, I should be able to handle this, but in my current situation right now, I can't handle this, and therefore, I'm gonna go take a nap.
Yeah.
You know, I like to think that I could handle everything all the time.
I think if I were to sit with justifying weak boundaries, it boiled down to shame. What shame do I feel? What am I trying to hide? What am I not wanting to face? So I don't think I try to justify them. I think I'm at a point where I can say, what is it that you're running from? Not that I can make a different choice, but it's like I'm aware of what I don't want
Yeah.
versus telling myself another story.
Yeah. You're learning to make different choices, I think.
I think so. Because boundaries don't fail, right? Boundaries don't fail because people are bad. They fail because people are taught to override themselves.
Right. It's such an important distinction. Once we recognize where boundaries dissolve, the next step is not confrontation, it's clarity. These next 4 questions invite you to practice boundaries as a relational skill.
Remember, take a few moments with each question, pause, take a few more minutes, but give yourself a day or two in between for a bigger impact. And you'll see how much deeper you can get into these questions, into your answers to these questions, once you've given yourself an opportunity to brain dump and then to revisit.
Yeah. And then when you come to the conversation on Tuesday night, you'll see how your answers are enhanced by listening to the answers that other people give.
Yes. So let's jump into question 5. What would my boundaries sound like if they came from self-respect instead of anger or fear? Notice the tone. Is it clear? Is it calm? Is it grounded?
That's it right there. The whole idea is when my boundaries can come from a place of self-respect, and not whether it's anger or fear or emotion. Emotion is the difference, right? Self-respect comes from a calm place. It comes from a not emotionally laden place. So there's no tinge of guilt. There's no, I'm not shaming you. I'm not shaming me. I just get to the point where I recognize what I need. No harm, no foul. And I can say it in a way that doesn't make you wrong, right? You're not wrong to want my attention. You're not wrong to want me to go to the store with you. You're not wrong for, whoever the you is, right? Not wrong for wanting something from me. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And if I can't do it or don't want to do it or don't have the time to do it or the energy, the inclination, then I can say that without having to get all up in a feeling that I have to make you wrong. Because we do that sometimes. If I don't want to own my own boundary, which is I don't have the energy to do that right now, let's say for whatever it is, then it's much easier if I make you wrong for asking than if I just own the fact that I don't have the energy to do it.
As I'm listening to you share that, it makes me think of a way to take a pause and even make it stated so that it's a conversation. It's like someone asked me, it's like, well, how do I feel about that right now? Give me a second to think about that. And then saying exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, it allows me an opportunity to soften the blow, right? Versus not saying it and then resenting it later. Or saying something I don't want to say. And it's like, it gives myself the opportunity to check in with myself and say, well, how do I feel about that? And saying it out loud puts the person on notice that maybe it may not be how you're going to want it to be. Because as I'm hearing it makes me think of, well, then what comes next? Oh, well, because I think about people in my past who would try to guilt trip it or try to manipulate it to whatever degree to get compliance. And it's like...
Yeah. Sometimes no is hard to say.
Yeah, I've been one of those people-pleasing type of people. And that's been hard for me to get from behind.
Yeah.
So I think that's a tool I'm going to try to use in the very near future is, well, how do I feel about that?
I like that.
And then really laying it out from there.
Yeah.
Because I'm a grown-ass adult. Who am I afraid of? Why am I afraid?
I don't know. All right. Question number 6. What has poor boundary keeping cost me emotionally or relationally? Right? Resentment, burnout, distance, loss of trust.
I definitely resonate with resentment. Feeling like I'm obligated to do things knowing that, or maybe sometimes knowing that I didn't have to, but doing it to keep the peace, but why? Distance. It makes me, when I'm not able to enforce boundaries or I feel bad around a person, it makes me create space with the person because I don't want to have to not have that boundary. Right? It's like, of course I'll do that with you. And I really don't want to.
Yeah.
All in the sake of keeping connection at peace.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think sometimes I don't realize that if the worst case scenario were to happen, right? I put a boundary in place, or I set a boundary, or I keep a boundary, or police a boundary, and I lose the person. Maybe I needed to lose them anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that person didn't need to be in my inner circle anymore. If I can't get an honor for a need that I have, because I think my boundaries are reasonable, right?
And when I read loss of trust on it, I think of people who don't take no as an answer.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in these kink and BDSM spaces where the boundary's set, but the person keeps pushing. And it's like, there's a loss of trust there, and distance wants to be made, and that's not only emotionally or relationally, that's physically too.
Yeah.
Right? What happens when no is not heard? So question 7, where am I responsible for not being clear? This isn't about blame, it's about agency.
I think for me, I feel like I'm always responsible. There's a certain like baseline level of responsibility I have to communicate clearly. And there's a certain amount of grace that I give everyone. Like if I feel like I communicated clearly and then you violate the boundary, I will give a person the benefit of maybe they didn't understand me. Maybe they didn't understand. Maybe I didn't use clear enough words, right? I'll own that responsibility and I'll give it another go, right? I don't know if you understood me when I said it the last time, or maybe you didn't remember, but I said X, Y, and Z, whatever the boundary is, right? And if at a certain point it becomes super clear that they heard it, but they just want what they want, then I make a different choice, right? But in the beginning, there's usually a window of time where I take responsibility for as clear a communication as I feel like can possibly be made. Because I know that people don't always hear things. People don't always hear things right the first time, or the second time, or sometimes even the third time, right? And I have that problem, right? So I wish for the same level of grace. If I inadvertently violate a boundary because I didn't hear you say it, or I didn't understand it when you did say it, what you were really trying to say, I would like to be given the grace of another round of, kind of honest and calm communication before I get chucked out for having violated the boundary because I never intend to violate a boundary, but I will do it if I didn't understand the boundary that was being set.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like I'm responsible everywhere I'm not saying what I need to be saying.
Yeah.
It's like, and I know intuitively, I know when something's off. I know when I'm not speaking up the way I need to be speaking. Like I'm aware of this stuff. It's my fear of, well, what happens if?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm responsible for not being clear anytime I'm not saying exactly what I mean to say.
That's fair. Question number 8. What boundary will I practice clearly and calmly this week? Choose one, small, specific, repeatable.
I think what I shared earlier about, well, how am I feeling about this?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Repeating back out loud the offer.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm going to practice this week. Well, how do I feel about X?
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, the boundary that I've been practicing and I'm continuing to practice is this one about taking care of myself, about my quiet time, about my rest time. I did it yesterday. I was in the middle of it yesterday and I was having a hard day and feeling like I wasn't getting enough done. And then that wave of fatigue came over me that like cripples me. And I just picked myself up and went to the sofa. I said, I'm going to take a nap. Fortunately, the puppies came with me, and that was really nice. But I gave myself permission. I set the boundary with myself, and I took a nap, and then I got up and I went about and did some more work, and it's just better if I do that. So I'm going to keep practicing that.
Thank you, Mama. So let's review this week's questions. Week 2 was about boundaries and self-respect. The first set was around awareness and orientation. First question is, what boundary do I avoid setting because I fear being misunderstood or rejected?
Second question, how does my body let me know when a boundary has been crossed?
Question 3, where do I override my own no to maintain connection or avoid discomfort?
4, what story do I tell myself to justify weak boundaries?
Second set is around deeper introspection and integration. The first question was, what would my boundaries sound like if they came from self-respect instead of anger or fear?
Second question, what has poor boundary keeping cost me emotionally or relationally?
Question 3, where am I responsible for not being clear?
And 4, what boundary will I practice this week clearly and calmly? If one question feels harder to answer, that's often the one that wants your attention.
Boundaries don't push people away. They reveal who can meet you where you're at.
Transformation through kink isn't about having perfect consent script. It's about developing the capacity to listen to yourself and to respond cleanly.
These questions will be explored live inside Conscious Conversations on Tuesday night, our community space where we practice boundaries in real time through reflection, dialogue, and skill building.
You don't need to be confrontational. You don't need to be rigid. You just need to be honest.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Kinky Podcast. New episodes drop every Friday.
And the conversation continues inside Conscious Conversations every Tuesday night.
Until next time, remember, boundaries aren't barriers. They're bridges to self-respect.
We'll see you in the conversation.
Awesome. Good job, Mom.